Ahoy there! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes. Now, it's the middle of the week again, so I'm going to do another one of my chill, relax, and just talk about a ship that I'm really enjoying, because as much as I want to do another Frigate Pilot's Manifesto for the Astero, I'm just not quite there yet, and there's a lot of other stuff in this video that I want to be talking about, not just in regards to sort of how to use the Astero and how to fit it, but the kind of crazy content I've been up to personally in it, because if you can't get good exploration content courtesy of NetEase, you may as well go and make your own, am I right? Anyway, so what I'm going to be doing today then is basically talking about the Astero, how I've got it fit currently, and the different things I've been doing with it, just to kind of give an idea of what I'm up to. I think I'm going to start calling this series like the Captain's Log or something. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. And while you're there, of course, please hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ding that notification bell. All of that really, really helps. Anyway, with all of that said and done then, let's start talking about the Sisters of Eve Astero, because I love this ship. This is one of those ships that I've been waiting for since the game first launched, so when they announced it was finally arriving in the game with faction war games, I knew I had to get my hands on one, and I did spend a full 4 billion on this thing when they were first, available. Super expensive at the time, they were completely uninsurable, but I was just so tired of flying an interceptor for absolutely everything, I was willing to pay the 4 billion just to get out of an interceptor. So what do I do with this? Well, let's go into the fitting pane, which will take a few moments to load, and you should get a brief idea of what it is I do, although I haven't actually fit the high slots here, curiously enough. Let's put those back in. Oh, excellent, Benzie. Top tier quality content, this. Anyway, so what you can see here, this is the standard fit I use when I go exploring, in inverted commas, with the Astero. Now, I say exploring in inverted commas because I don't really go out looking for relic and data sites so much. I'll explain why later, but if I were going for relic and data sites, this is still very much the setup I would use. Now, the aim of this setup is simple, that we're using the Astero to go hunting for these sites, and I'm all about the survival. I will fire off a volley at someone if I think I can possibly take them, but you'll notice that there's no warp scrambler or warp disruptor, so I'm not intending to actually be able to kill anyone with this. I'm not hunting in this, it's just enough firepower to form a defense, and defense is exactly what we're going for here. Now, of course, the mid-slots are what you'd expect for an Astero on the subject of exploration. An Explorer wide-range wave resonance simulator, a guest data analyzer, and a Gravedigger relic analyzer. The Meta 8 ones, because if I find a site, if in the rare chance I find a site, I damn well want to be sure that I can get every single container in it. It's also why my exploration technology skill is currently all the way up at Expert 4. Fully skilled out in all of that, just to maximise the possibility of me actually getting loot. But again, that's not my main intent. For the lows, I've gone for a small micro warp drive alongside my covert ops cloaking device. This allows me to get through gate camps nice and easily, and I've got a Natura warp core stabilizer. Yes, I know the Aura is technically better because they do the same thing, but the Aura has a lower, a lower activation cost. This was just the one I happened to have lying around at the time, and I've not been bothered to actually put the Aura on there. It's technically better, but there's so little in it that I don't really care enough to worry, if that makes sense. The basic concept here is that I've got the cloak and the micro warp drive for running gate camps. If I land into a gate camp, I can cloak and just drift through to the gate itself. If I jump a gate and I land in a bubble on the other side, well, I can do the whole warp trick where you sort of double tap a direction, activate the micro warp drive and the cloak at the same time. You get one cycle of the micro warp drive to push some real distance and hopefully get out of that bubble a little bit faster. And if they do catch me, then the warp core stabilizer helps me to get away. And you might be thinking, that's a pretty cowardly way of playing an Astero. Well, yes, because for a long time me flying this, as I said, it was a 4 billion-isk ship that was uninsurable. So darn straight I was a little bit cautious about how I flew this. Now the high slots, you'll notice here, I've actually gone for Pitham C-type medium rapid missile launchers because the power grid on this thing can actually fit these. You could, if you were going a bit more sort of hunting and using sort of smaller weaponry like small missiles or heck, small cannons or anything you fancy fancy there. You could swap out the low slot there of the warp core stabilizer for something like even a medium shield extender. You'd be amazed at how well that actually fits in, or medium armor plating and stuff like that if you want to go defensive that way. For me though, my main defense is not being caught. If I am caught, I've got the capability to sort of bunny rabbit away, and if I think I can sort of scare them off instead, like it's an interceptor, then I've got the C-type medium rapid missile launchers there just to do a bit of damage. You see the DPS on this thing isn't really that high. If we actually have a look at its stats, you'll see you've got that cloaking device lock delay and the cloaking device reactivation delay roll bonuses there. People think that this makes the Astero all about, like, hunting. That you can covert ops right up to someone, you can drop the cloak and immediately lock on, and then launch your drones at them. The thing is, because of that cloak, you still have a fairly low lock-on time. It takes you a little bit of time, and if you're up against something like an interceptor, they can either run away if they don't think they can take you, or they're going to lock first, get to range, and actually start to rip you to shreds. The Astero is surprisingly tanky, but it's just not the hunter that people seem to think it is. That's not to say that you can't get kills in it. Believe me, I've had Vassetti send me a whole slew of impressive kills with the Astero. It's not what the Astero is based for. If you look at its bonuses here, you're getting things like scanning bonuses, you're getting scan resolution, cargo hold capacity, all this kind of thing. There are some drone damage and armor resistances there as well, but this to me is... In EVE Online, the reason it has this is because if you go into something like a rogue drone site and you want to do scanning, there may be NPC drones in there that you need to take care of, and it's the same with some of the other sites like ghost sites and things. Obviously, we don't have those in Echoes yet. This is not a PvE or a PvP combat ship as far as I'm concerned. It's got capabilities, but they're kind of the last line for me, which is why when it comes to the rigs, you'll notice, well, okay, here I've gone for the firepower augmenter and the speed augmenters, just because I wanted to see what DPS there is capable on this. That's with full tier 3 rigs there. I'm still only getting 375.47 DPS, and that's with me at full expert 4 on small drone operation and small drone upgrade. This is what I mean, it's not a combat ship. You could even swap these out for shield, you could swap them out for armor rigs, anything just there for the defenses. Now on the right hand side of things here, I've gone for a gravity capacitor upgrade, 2 of those there, sorry, gravity capacitor upgrade 3, 2 of those there to reduce the minimum scan radius and scan radius of my scanning equipment. Again, if there is a site out there, I want to be 100% certain that I can find it. And then I've gone for a warp core optimizer 2. Again, this I'd probably actually upgrade to a warp core optimizer 3 now that I've got a bit more ISK, just to be able to escape if anything does catch me. And same there, you could swap the second gravity capacitor upgrade for another one of those as well, if you really wanted, just to be absolutely certain that you can flee from any situation, because as I said, the DPS on this just isn't great. Now this kind of brings to the question that I said I use this when I go exploring in inverted commas. Yes, I will jump around systems and try and find relic and data sites, and I have made a little bit of ISK here and there, but you may remember that I said recently that I've been doing a lot of exploring. I've jumped through entire regions and found 0 relic or data sites while scanning. It's why I talk about why scanning needs a big rework to actually make it worthwhile for your time. Just simply put, if you put the same amount of skill points into ratting, you can literally triple your average income with a lot less effort, which is just insane. Exploration needs love. Anyway, so basically, what I've been doing in the Estero is kind of the Cartier Sai challenge. Now, for those of you who don't know, in EVE Online there was a player by the name of Cartier Sai who took it upon herself, himself, herself, themself, to fly through every single star system in EVE. Every single one. That was all of the ones in known space. So if I open up the star map here, I can't even remember where it is there. Sorry, there, star charts. Every single one of those dots has to be visited, with proof and evidence to the fact. And then of course the same is true for the drone regions, which we don't have yet, and Cartier Say took this a step further by going through all of the wormhole space as well. So the basic concept is that if, for example, just here having a look at every shore, you see all of these connections, all of these dots, all of those star systems. She took it upon herself, or they took it upon themselves, to go through every single one of those star systems and to record that journey step by step. And I've been doing the same. I'm not going to tell you which systems I've already done, because obviously people can then narrow it down and start working out which systems I'm going to be going in, and thus hunting me makes it a bit more difficult for me. But I have been going around and clearing numerous different regions of each of their star systems. I visit every single star system in New Eden. I take a screenshot once I'm in there to prove that I'm there. I then scan it for relic and data sites, and I'll clear those if they're there as well. And I've been having a lot of fun doing this, and I've done about 6 or 7 regions so far. Now, obviously, there are a lot of regions. This is not a quick journey, and this is not one of those things that, like, people talk about it and go, oh, that's really cool, I'd be interested in doing that. As someone who has done this many regions so far, I can tell you this is not an easy challenge. Like, my goodness. One, it has been absolutely just insane having to print out a map and manually plot a route and then work through that route, crossing off everything one by one, making sure I take a screenshot, making sure I scan everything. It is time intensive, sorry. It's time intensive, and it's one of those things, you can't autopilot this. You have to manually be watching every single system, and some of the regions I've done are nullsec regions, one of which I actually successfully jumped through 3 systems in a row that had gate camps, and if that isn't one of the most nail-biting, what is wrong with my speech today? One of the most nail-biting experience I've ever had, I don't know what is. There is nothing quite like arriving in a system to find yourself inside a bubble. You escape that bubble, you warp to the next gate, having done your safe spot and taking the screenshots and the scanning, etc. You then move to the next gate and find yourself straight away inside another bubble. I then come through that gate into the second system, and I'm bubbled again. Now, the gate that I jumped to wasn't bubbled, but the system on the other side was bubbled again. So basically 4 gate camps in the series of 3 systems. It was just insane. Absolutely insane, and a terrifying experience to nearly be caught. And that was before this was insurable. So yeah, I've been going a little bit crazy with that, and I'm looking forward to actually getting this completed and showcasing how some of this is done. Basically, it's been a lot of fun. It's an interesting way for me to find my own content in the game, I suppose. I can obviously scan down the relic and data sites as well, and I can get a bit of loot whilst I'm doing this, but for the most part it is just the mapping out the entirety of New Eden. And I have made some interesting discoveries as well, because I originally printed the maps off using Dotlan, which is a star system map for EVE Online. And it was only when I jumped into a couple of systems and went, this isn't on the map. There are 4 gates on the map, but there are 5 gates here. What on earth is this? That I realised EVE Online, of course, has some systems missing from it now. For example, if you were to go down into Malden Heath, there is a system called Scarcon. Scarcon is famous in the EVE lore as being a Minmatar system that actually completely defected to the Angel Cartel. It was a system that was entirely run by the Angel Cartel, despite it only being in lowsec, not in nullsec. Now, in EVE Echoes, Scarcon is there. You can visit it. It's actually a pretty lucrative place to be. It's a pretty cool area. In EVE Online, that system is now part of what's called the Triglavian Collective, and I'm not going to go through all of that. It's in an area called Pochven, which is a pretty sort of confusing part of what's happened in New Eden, and something I do hope eventually the EVE Echoes gets to, but not for a while yet. But it was just interesting realising that actually the maps that I was using were also unreliable, and there are a few other little bits here and there that I found. Systems that actually connect to each other, that don't connect in EVE Online, regions that you can jump through that are a little bit easier to get from highsec to nullsec than they were in EVE Online. These are not the exact same maps, and that's been pretty cool. Because what started out as kind of a follow the dots exercise has now felt really like I'm charting uncharted territories, or at least I'm following someone's incomplete map, and it's been pretty cool. Like, some of the planets that you can see out there are awesome, and some of the stargates that you kind of spot in the distance, you know, you'll arrive at a stargate, there's a really cool planet there, and you just want to get some cool screenshots of these things. I really have been enjoying this. It's also why I was doing my little mini-series previously on, like, the top 5 places in New Eden that I want to visit that are in EVE Online and not in EVE Echoes, various different sites that I think would be a really interesting addition, along with the top 5 of nebulae that I really like, because some of the skyboxes in EVE are really, really pretty. There's no two ways about it that when you're undocked and flying around, some of those skyboxes are really, really awesome, and it's just so it's really relaxing to do this. So if you are ever bored, I do kind of recommend just jumping in a ship and going out flying around. It may feel like a pointless endeavour, and you might think, well, yeah, but I could spend that time ratting. You don't necessarily need to spend every waking moment in this game making ISK. This is a game, after all. You're supposed to be enjoying it. It's not a second job. I know it can sometimes feel like it, and I think I'm guilty of that as well at times, jumping in and sort of going through the motions of just wanting to earn as much ISK as possible, especially as I'm now trying to save for a Nidhogger on Silent Rose. But for the time being, having that ability to just fly around, look at the pretty scenery, talk to some people in local when I'm feeling brave enough, occasionally find a relic or data site to scan down, it's pretty cool. It has definitely opened my eyes to how bad the situation with relic and data sites is. The fact that I went through 4 entire regions in the space of 2 days and found exactly 1 relic site despite scanning every single system in those 4 regions really says a lot. There is no point that in really focusing on content that just isn't guaranteed to be there, and I think NetEase really need to do something about that. And that's the final thing I'll say before I go, is that yes, exploration needs fixing. In EVE Online, the system is straightforward. If you clear a relic or data site, once the last container has been opened, it despawns, and if once a container has been opened, it starts a timer, so that you don't get a build-up of sites that have just got 1 crate floating in them. When you land in a site, it starts to despawn. When you finish clearing it all, it will despawn faster. Once a site has despawned, another site of the same type, and so a relic site or a data site or whatever, will spawn somewhere else in the same region, but not in the same system. So it means if I were to find, for example, a thing here in Berai, which is all the way down here, no, let's just go Holiday. If I were to find a relic site in Holiday, I clear it, I empty out all its boxes, within 2 minutes, another system will spawn somewhere along all of those white lines. Anywhere in the same region. It's never going to be back in Holiday again, it'll be somewhere else, which means you can't easily farm it, because there's every possibility that the one that has just respawned is all the way there in Matere, or in Frarol, or Galente names are horrific. Who named all of these systems? It'll respawn somewhere in the same region, which makes it very hard to farm, but it means it's always there, because it means if someone was up here in Avele, or over here in, oh goodness gracious me, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that one. If they are clearing scanning sites there is a chance that one will appear in the system that I'm about to jump into, and it means there is always content available. In EVE Echoes, the system we have is that sites have a 108-hour respawn timer, maximum. Every hour there is a 0.9% chance of a site respawning, and that is cumulative. So in 2 hours, it's then a 1.8% chance, and then it's a 2.7% chance in 3 hours time, and so on and so forth, until eventually the site spawns. And it will spawn a random site from a table based on what that system can spawn. And that means that there is every possibility that an entire region of space has exactly 0 relic or data sites in it. You could be flying through an entire region with no one else in, and that was another sad thing, realizing that Derelict, one of my favourite regions, I used to be based out of Maspa back in the open beta, was pretty much empty. I think I saw another 6-7 pilots through that entire region. Told you I wasn't going to tell you where I flew, but I've mentioned 2 regions now that I've flown through. Anyway, basically when I was flying through there, it was pretty much, devoid of anyone. There was nothing really there. Yet there was still no sites at all, and that to me is a problem. Anyway, folks, that's about all for what I've been getting up to in my Astero. I do hope to see you out there. If you do spot me in local, feel free to say hi. Please don't try and scan me down and blow me up. Just, let me get on with my exploration. You might feature in a screenshot if you're really lucky. I'm always happy to take screenshots with fans, but usually next to gates or stations or in high-sec, where you can't blow me up. Anyway, thanks for listening to me rant, folks. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.